Boker Tov, good morning. Today is Friday, November 4th, Erev Shabbat, Parshat Lech Lechah. Parshat Lech Lechah, towards the end, presents us with God's pronouncement to Avraham, discussing the mitzvah of Brit Milah, of circumcision, that he's going to change his name. V'lo yikarei od et shimcha Avram, v'heya shimcha Avraham. Ki ab hamon goyim netaticha. And your name will no longer be called Avram, but rather Avraham, with a hey, ki av hamon goyim netaticha, because I've given you over to be the father of a multitude of nations. That has to do with his influence that will be much broader than just the small influence. In the one rendering, you've been the Av to Aram, to the world of the Aram, which was where he comes from, and now Avraham, as in Hamon, as the multitude of people. That's what his name will carry. The Midrash, actually quoted in the Gemara Nedarim, adds a different twist, and here we shift from Avraham having universal influence to actually Avram having just very personal influence. Personal influence over no one other than himself. Amar Rami bar Abba. He said the following: B'tchila himlicho HaKadosh Baruch Hu al 243 evarim. Originally, God made him master over 143 limbs. Avram is being played with in this midrash to be read as if it's an Evarim, and Aleph Beit Resh Mem numerically equals 243. So initially, Avram was developed himself in that regard. He was able to master so much of who he was. V'libesof, and towards the end, or in a culmination of his personal development, he made him master of 248 limbs. That's Avraham. Add the 5 more, it's 248. Elohein shtei einayim, shtei oznayim, v'rosh hagaviyah. That refers to his 2 eyes and to his 2 ears, and the place of the circumcision. What is it talking about? What are we presented here? So it's a great little play on words that Avraham adds up to 248, which the rabbis have told us in rabbinic anatomy class are the numbers of limbs that a human being has, and notes that Avram is somehow short of that. So there is something here that to be Avraham has something to do with this mastery. And the message being that a good deal of our work in the world is about developing just that. We spend our time wondering, how can I influence everybody else? Ultimately, the way we influence others is by having influenced ourselves. That is a tremendously important lesson. There are variations on this teaching that perhaps you're familiar with. But what emerges from here, when God says, "Hitalech lefanai v'heyeh tamim," walk before me and be whole through this act, it is the act of the circumcision is to learn how to master everything about you, everything you do, and here adding in how he would procreate and what his sexual life would be like. On top of the ears and the eyes, what he would allow himself to see and what he would allow himself to hear. You master yourself, then you have the capacity to be an Av Hamon Goyim. Then you can perhaps be an influential person regarding the rest of the world. It's such a tragedy that we live in an era where there are people who have outrageously large followings on Instagram or Twitter. Some of them are quite dangerous. Many of them are quite dangerous. Some of them have, as we've dealt with in the past few weeks, have harbor anti-Semitic hatreds that that can have some terrible impact around, and others are just influencing people into a world, a whole vortex of emptiness, of emptiness. I don't want to sound like a curmudgeon and an old fuddy-duddy, but that's what it is. Avraham will have outsized influence, but the message being made here, it emerges from the quality of the person, the quality of the character, the nature of the human being that Avraham became and then modeled for the rest of the world. That's our message as well. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.